It's Jason Abraham, shadow teacher, and a question I get asked a lot is, what does your waking up process look like? How did you awaken? And if I answer that question truthfully, it'd probably be like a 5-hour video, because what I found in my waking up process, it was a process. And there would be times when I would get some information that would just shake my beliefs to the foundation, and then I would find myself seeking comfort, seeking validation from others, and going back to an unconscious state. And it went back and forth like this. But what I will do is I will break this process up and do a series and give you the highlights of my journey, as what I've found is that there are these key moments throughout my life that significantly contributed to how I view my existence and the world at large at this particular place and time. And let's start, we'll go back to the rocket horse, go back to where it all began, to quote Bret Michaels. So when I was young, a few things. I always had an affinity for the stars, for the luminous bodies, the sun, the moon, and I would just always project my consciousness out to the stars. There are times too when I would just stare directly at the sun. I would just look straight up at the sun, what all the adults told me not to do, and just be mesmerized. And just what I found is my consciousness going to these magical realms where form just dissipated, but there was an experience that my words cannot totally do justice for. And a good friend of mine when I was young, he's also the friend who introduced me to heavy metal for the first time, which I'm eternally grateful for. But another thing I'm eternally grateful for is that he introduced the concept of ESP. And this time in pop culture, paranormal psychology is starting to get pushed to the forefront. And we were just all into it, and just all into experimenting with telepathy, precognition, being able to see the future. And just our intention was already there. And one moment stood out to me when I was a young child, where something beyond our 3D senses actually saved my life. I was in the backyard at a friend's house, and there was a gathering, and one of the I was pretty young. I was probably like 6, 7 at this time. And some older kids, when you're that age, it's like you idolize like the 13-year-olds and the older kids in the neighborhood. And there was a group of older kids, and one of them, my friend had a bow and arrow, and so one of the older kids was just showing off his strength and his competency with the bow and arrow. And he would take the bow and he would shoot an arrow straight up into the sky, and he was able to get it pretty high up. And then the arrow would just rocket down like a meteor. And so he was doing this trick, and I was just kind of standing there, just sort of in a daze and a little bit overwhelmed. There's just so many people, and I wasn't aware that I had empathic tendencies, but I was a little bit overstimulated by the people. And so I did notice people like yelling and making a lot of noise. But I was still just standing, and I just take one step over to the side. Next thing I knew, I feel this air, something go down my side, go, and whatever prompted me to take that step saved my life that day. As if I had not, the arrow would have gone straight down to the middle of my skull, and I would not be making this video today. So this incident, I can't remember if this was after I was consciously looking into ESP or if it was before, but at that age, either way, like, there was part of me that knew there was something beyond what school was teaching me. There was forces that were beyond, and I was just fascinated with it. I could feel that connection. And again, I also had, my imagination would take me places as well. Being an only child, that was not imagined. But much of what, of where my imagination would lead me, I would also usually get confirmation in the material realm. So there were some psychic abilities that I just didn't know how to tap into, and no one, or no adults, no people who had a more mature mind knew. They didn't believe in that sort of stuff, but it was there. And again, part of me was determined to explore human potential, explore these unlearned capacities of the human being. And here I am today doing the same thing. I just, when you experience stuff like that, that's just such a profound part of who you are, you can't turn it away, even when you try to. Even when you go unconscious, that part is still not going to let you completely do it. So that's my first, sort of the seeds of my awakening, at least in this life. At least in this life. I'll share another video of another phase of my awakening in the future. Don't know when that'll be. But for you, for those of you who are waking up, I salute you. I give you my best and hope these videos are encouraging to you, and hope you are shedding your light, you know, finding the truth that your experience is revealing to you, and you're sharing that and transmuting this world, bringing it into 5D consciousness. And that's all I got for you. Class dismissed.